You are listening to the Lose Weight for the Last Time podcast with me, Laura Conley, and my amazing friend slash client slash team member, Krista Couch. She is here. She is back on the show. Welcome, Krista. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's fun to be back.
You guys are going to love this episode because we have been polling our audience. We have been polling our clients. We have been polling people that are interested in joining the Yummy Mummy. We want to know what you guys want help with. And one thing that we have found out is that you want help with, hey, is the reason I'm not losing weight because my thyroid's screwed up? Is the reason I'm not losing weight because my hormones are totally out of whack? Is the reason I'm not losing weight have something to do with something that I'm not aware of? And so we wanted to dive into that specific subject today. But if you guys have other topics that you want us to talk about, please shoot me a DM on Instagram at Laura Conley Coaching or email us laura@lauraconley.com so that we can literally tailor this podcast for you because it makes our job way more fun. So welcome to the pod, Krista. Let's dive right into the thyroid conversation because not only is Krista on my team, but she just started doing the Yummy Mummy experience, which is so fun because she actually gets the transformation, but she also gets to look at it from a marketing standpoint.
Yeah. So I was telling Laura today that I have congenital hypothyroidism. So that means I've been on thyroid medication throughout my whole life. And ever since I was a baby, I've had to go get my blood test. And I know all of the things that I look at. And I also just finished breastfeeding a few months ago. So I know my hormones are all out of whack. And I went and got a blood test. And I know for a fact that my thyroid hormones are off. I need a little bit more medication. But I'm waiting to go get tested. So I have this circumstance that I know is a fact that my thyroid levels are off. And that I have gained weight this last week. And I also know that for the next couple of months, I'm going to be testing out the medication. I need to wait and be on my same dose for a second, that I am going to switch doses. And I know that for the next couple of months, I'm going to be trying to get these evened out. So it's going to take time. And there's a part of me that's like, I guess I can't lose weight for the next 2 months. Gotta wait. So
totally.
I know I'm not the only one that feels this way. So I want to get your coaching, Laura, but I also know it's going to help other people.
Yeah, it's so funny because I just got diagnosed with hypothyroidism too. And I totally lost weight for the last time having had that. And so it's just proof that yeah, there could be other things going on, but you don't have to block yourself from what it is that you want to create with your weight. I'll give it to you. It might be a little bit harder to lose weight, but the reason why it's super hard to lose weight if you have something going on with your thyroid is because of your thoughts, because you're thinking thoughts like, oh, I'm not going to be able to get the right dose for 2-3 months. So what's the point now anyways? And then if you're like I used to be, you're eating all the things because you've created a case of the F-its, which is totally optional. And so I just want to scream from the rooftops, you guys, that if you do have some medical stuff going on, and this can come up a lot with perimenopause too, but if you have some medical stuff or hormone stuff going on, do not throw the baby out with the bathwater. You really, I pinky promise you, it's still 90, 95%, 99% about what you're putting in your mouth and when you are putting it in your mouth. So what comes up, Krista, when I share that?
I think that there's 2 pieces to it. I think that the first one is okay, that's valid. I like the idea that's empowering of okay, what can I control? What is within my control? And I think on the flip side of it, there's a little voice in the back of my head that's but I don't think you can actually do it. The more you talk about wanting to lose weight, the more you let yourself want this, the more it's going to hurt to fail at it and to really try for a couple of months and not be able to do it and to feel really crappy because of that. And I think that keeps coming up for me in the background is the like, can't let myself want it.
Yes, because your belief has waned because this thyroid thing has come up.
I think that's a big piece of it.
Yeah, totally. It's like, if my thyroid was fine or my meds were dialed in or whatever, then I would give myself the gift of belief. But since we're screwing around with the dose or whatever, it's like, what is the point? And it's going to be embarrassing if I do try and then fail. What's so interesting too is like, and I know you know this, but for the audience, it's like no one taught me, let me just speak from experience, that I could believe whatever I wanted about my ability to lose weight, or I could just believe anything I wanted, period, end of sentence. And so, yeah, it might be a little bit harder for you to believe that it's still possible for you to lose weight during this time, but it is an option, and you can build that belief by thinking thoughts. And I also want to put on the table too, and we can come back to this, but this idea of like, why do you want to lose weight? Like, what's the point behind it? Because if you have reasons that are compelling enough, there's probably reasons you want to eat healthy or eat the way that you've decided you're going to eat that are they're in addition to just wanting to lose weight. I'm sure there's a lot of health reasons. Let me say one more thing. It's like so fascinating what our brains will do, right? It's like, well, I can't actually honor my plan until I get my thyroid dialed and the medicine dialed. I can't actually do that. Like, there's no point. I'm not going to lose weight. And it's like, you want to know what's going to help you dial in your thyroid and all of your other hormones is not eating processed food. And that's so much of what a lot of my clients will do is like, of course, you guys all pick your own plans, but moving away from a lot of processed foods, moving away from processed sugar, moving away from flour, that helps us to really balance our hunger hormones and weigh what we want. But the cool thing is too, is when our hunger hormones are balanced, it helps our thyroid, it helps our sex hormones. It's almost impossible to have balance when it comes to your sex hormones like testosterone, progesterone, and estrogen if your hunger hormones aren't balanced. So I know I just went on like 3 different tangents, but I'll let you speak to that or those things.
Part of what I think is really unique about the Yummy Mummy experience and doing not just having a plan and trying to follow through with that is really exploring the mental and emotional side of weight loss and using weight loss as a tool to explore all of those things. And I think what's interesting, as you point that out, is just to watch my brain come up with these self-protective ways of being like, okay, you're trying and it's not working. And there's a part of you that wants to beat yourself up for that and not feel good enough and feel stuck. So not trying, giving up, feels safer, not looking for the solutions. And I definitely see that coming up. And you talked about the compelling reasons piece. And I think that's been a really interesting part of my journey doing the Yummy Mummy experience is coming up with my reasons for wanting to lose weight, because I'm actually not trying to lose a significant amount of weight. But one of my really compelling reasons has been to just show myself that I can do it and do it in a healthy way. Like do it in a different way than I've been shown. Do it in a way that's like really loving and show myself that I can make really healthy choices and weigh what I want without hating myself along the way. But even with that, like part of that process and part of getting there is just watching this stuff come up with like this, like, can't let myself want it too much.
Yeah.
And I think that gets in the way of coming up with these really compelling reasons. So it's been helpful to dig deep into that and pay attention to all of these things as they come up, because I'm not doing myself any service by not wanting it or throwing in the towel or just being like, oh, I'll try to maintain my weight for a few more months, because I know I can do that already.
Yeah, it's such a vicious cycle when we're like, oh, it's got to be my thyroid. So if that's the truth, then what's the point of all of this? Might as well throw in the towel. And then layer on top of that, the ego that wants to set out to achieve a goal and then achieve it and have it be easy. So what would you make it mean if like you didn't hit your goal or you didn't lose weight and you fully went for it?
Trying to look at really what I'd make it mean, and like the part of my brain I don't really want to look at. It feels like, I know that I could give you some just like, oh, this is what I'd like to say, but like I think the part that I don't really like to look at and what I'd make it mean is that like something's wrong with you. You don't have what it takes to do this. You're not strong enough. I think that there's that association between like having a lot of willpower, and that's the way to lose weight. Even though that's not even the way I'm trying to do it, I come back to that, and like there is that part of me that's like, oh, well, you're not strong enough. You're not determined enough. And those like that self-doubt, those not so nice thoughts, the things that like I'd never say to my friends, I'd never say to the people I really love and care about come up.
Yeah, that's so good, because what I think, I mean, you know, but a lot of the audience might not know is that's totally a choice. Like you could make it mean all of those things, or you could make it mean something else. You could make it mean that your thyroid is screwed up and you're fixing it and you're working to heal it, or you're working to get the right dose of medicine or whatever. But it's so funny, I think, that the ego, and I think the ego like makes BFFs with our lower like reptilian brain that loves to seek a dopamine hit. So it's like 2v1. It's like you have the ego who wants to protect you from your own thoughts, from you beating you up. And then you've got your lower brain that's like dopamine, 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 which it can find with processed food or sugar and flour or whatever. So it's like there's your future self or your higher self, or the part of you that does want to create this weight loss. And then there's 7 other parts of you that want Oreos. And so, yeah, this is why the mindset coaching and the emotional work is like so important, because it's impossible to lose weight without exploring all of this and without showing yourself that like, you know, I could set out to achieve a goal and decide if I don't get there that at least I tried and I'm really strong for trying, or whatever, however else you would want to reframe that. How would you reframe that, do you think? Because you're not quitting, are you?
No, I'm not.
It's like if you're not going to quit, then we might as well tell a better story. So let's say you don't hit your goal. Like let's say in 2 months, let's say you have a goal for 2 months from now and you don't hit it. What would you originally have made it mean? And which you kind of just told us. And what would you choose to make it mean now that you know that there's choice in that?
I think that one thing that I would come back to 2 months of weighing the same thing. It's like I've weighed the same thing for a long time. It's just 2 more months of weighing that same thing. But the difference is during those 2 months doing the Yummy Mummy experience process, I'm journaling every day. I'm exploring my emotions in a way that has been really enlightening and interesting, because it's improving other areas of my life. Like I could see all of these things that during those 2 months, and I don't even know what I'm going to learn over the next 2 months, but I could be really excited about the things that I've learned and know that like, hey, I learned a couple of things that aren't going to work. So that I'm that much closer to what is going to work for me. I mean, by the time 2 months rolls around, I would have adjusted my protocol, been able to collect some more data. And those 2 months need to be part of the process if they end up being part of the process.
Yeah, I love that. It's so good. I love what you're talking about, because like we're also collecting really clean data. I think before doing the Yummy Mummy, it's like I was never collecting clean data. I never could be like, oh, it's definitely my thyroid, or it's definitely my testosterone is off, or like I'm not working out enough, or like maybe it's the like boatloads of heavy cream I'm putting in my coffee. Like I was never actually collecting clean data, so I actually couldn't iterate appropriately. And so it just gave me this effect of riding the diet roller coaster, or the overeating, undereating roller coaster forever, because I never could actually point to anything. So it's like you get way cleaner data. I always like to offer to like, what if it really was just the food. Like, people always want to say, oh, well, like diet, it's diet and exercise. It's diet and exercise. And I'm like, I mean, I love working out. I love exercise. I work out every day. It's my favorite. And it never even helped me lose weight. All of those years, I was like crushing myself in the gym. It always ended up being mostly about the food. And so I would like encourage you guys, the listeners out there, to like, what if it was just the food? Like, what if that was the truth? And just experimenting with that for the next couple months without blaming something else. Because when you blame something else, you take away your potential, you take away your agency, and you abdicate it to something that may or may not be responsible. And it's probably not responsible. It probably is the food. I can't tell you how many clients have come in and are like, nope, I'm really actually a special unicorn. Like, this really actually isn't going to work for me. Like, thank God you have a money back guarantee. This is like for real. Like, I really am broken. Like, I really, there really is something wrong with me. And then they come in and they lose weight for the last time. And it turns out it wasn't because they have Irish in them and they're supposed to be like heavy set potato farmers. This is shit my clients tell me.
Oh, I love it. It is interesting, even just sitting here watching the way that my brain lies to me or makes up delusional stories. Like, here's an example.
Yeah, I was just going to ask.
Is Laura hosted a retreat last weekend. I was there. We had Natalie, who's an amazing chef, preparing all of her food, and it was healthy, but there was a lot of it because I'm not used to having a chef prepare all my food for me. So
you guys, she's amazing. Her food is so good. I love it.
Yeah. And in my head, I'm like, well, it's all really healthy, nourishing foods, so we're good. But I probably did overeat. I was eating plenty of food. I was never really hungry. I mean, I don't really regret it. It was really good. But coming home from that, I'm like, okay, well, Laura, the last 2 days, I followed my protocol perfectly.
Ooh, it's so good. Oh, I get that coaching. People will come with that coaching all the time. They're like, I'm totally honoring my protocol, but they're like totally overeating on protocol foods, right? They're like stuffing themselves to the brim. And what we're going to learn, actually, we're not to the point. Krista's only in week 3 of the Yummy Mummy. But what we're about to learn is the hunger scale and like really tuning it. Once your hunger hormones are balanced, like, it's so cool. Your body really will tell you when it's hungry and when it's sated, when it's super stuffed and when it's starving. Like, it's going to give you all of the cues and you'll be able to respond appropriately. And I think there's a learning curve because no one has taught us how to lose weight for the last time except for basically me. But I'm half kidding. But my point with that is like, yeah, that part is coming. You're going to learn how to tune into your cues. And I've gotten to the point where I like really hate being full. Like, I like being sated, but I hate being over full. It feels so uncomfortable and it feels like way too much for my body. It feels like my body's mad at me. So I feel like that's like a normal part of the process and you're only in week 3. We haven't gotten there. But yeah, it does come up where people are like, I'm 100% on protocol. And it's like, well, you're eating like 7 servings. You're eating like a 16-year-old teenage boy who's on the football team. And no right or wrong, no judgment. You guys all get to decide for yourselves what's right for you and what's maybe not serving you. So I think that's probably good data for you to have too. Like, I mean, obviously Krista knows this, but you guys inside the Yummy Mummy, we're testing and retesting using the scientific method. So we have a hypothesis. The hypothesis is, hey, if I eat on my plan, which will balance my hunger hormones, then I will lose weight for the last time. And we go out and collect data on that plan. And we see, okay, if I eat in this way, then I'm going to lose weight. So Krista might know, she might have some data that like, okay, if I eat 2 servings at every meal on a retreat, I'm not going to lose weight on that retreat, right? Just good to know. And then the next retreat she comes on, I'll be batting the freaking delicious eggs. And oh my God, Natalie had like this what was it? Like braised beef. That was my favorite dish. Oh, it was so good. I'll be batting the second servings out of her face. I'm kidding. I won't do that. But anyways, I think that's a normal thing that comes up all the time. It's like, okay, I'm on protocol, and yet is it too much food? And I also think as Americans, we're just like really trained to think like what a normal amount of food is. And I'm like, is what you think a normal amount of food, is that an appropriate amount of food for your body? And it's always interesting. I always like say, let's play Krista in Paris, because I do think, I know it's like a little bit cliche because there was that book, which is actually not a bad book, but like Why French Women Don't Get Fat. There's also a new book called Why French Women Don't Get Facelifts, which I totally am going to have to read because I'm telling Krista, it looks like my face is kind of falling off of itself lately. Anyways, I digress, but look at the portions in so many other countries. And it's just like we have been so programmed and conditioned to think what a normal amount of food is. And that might be appropriate for us and it might not be.
Yeah. I also nursed for 2 years and then I was pregnant before that. And I think that is a big piece of like, I'm relearning what my body, not feeding another human, needs.
Yes.
And that is like learning what portions do I need? Because I'm like, okay, well, the last 2 days, I totally ate a small amount of food. Maybe that's not the amount of food my body needs now that I'm not nursing.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really interesting thing to learn, as I kind of started this around the time where my body's not producing milk. And so obviously that's going to impact how much food my body needs.
Yeah. A lot of people do gain weight after they stop breastfeeding. It's so interesting. Yeah. I hear that a lot. I hear like, okay, I had the baby and then I nursed for X amount of time and like lost all the baby weight, then stopped nursing and like gained 10 or 20 pounds. Like it's a really common story. I mean, there's a million different stories that I've heard with nursing, with not nursing, with pregnancy. It's just so many shifts. But, you know, I also will get a lot of moms who are like, yeah, nursing did not take off the baby weight for me, like at all. That was my story. I didn't really I lost most of my baby weight, but I nursed for like 14 months with my daughter, Luna. And it wasn't until I stopped nursing her that I lost like the last, like, I think it was like 5 or 8 pounds, which came off like that. But it's different for everybody. And that's why the Yummy Mummy has to be custom to everybody, because everyone is different and everyone's hormones are different and everybody's the environmental load, the toxic load, everyone has different factors going on. That's why we have to do it the way that we do it. Scientific method. Yeah. Test, retest. Okay, what else do you have to say? What else do the people need to know?
I think another thing that comes up with that is I think I'm programmed to think 2 different ways. One of them is like the amount of food I'm used to eating, the habits that I've been in around food, which is probably a little bit extra food and being full sometimes, like having extra food. And then the other piece is like, there's this diet brain where I'm like, okay, like I need to be hungry. And I think what doesn't work for me is actually being hungry. Like there's a couple of days when I first decided I was going to do the Yummy Mummy experience and try to lose weight before I had any support, where I like woke up in the middle of the night, like I'm so hungry. Oh, yeah. And I talked to you about this. I like woke up with a protein bar wrapper in my hand. I like still had it in my hand when I woke up. Like, dang it, I didn't brush my teeth again. But finding that sweet spot, and I'd be curious what advice you have of just what does it take to learn that in between of not being hungry, not going to bed hungry and suffering, but also like letting yourself be hungry sometimes, letting yourself not eat just because there's a little bit of a need to eat.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's very individual, but I think testing and retesting and seeing what works for you. What's interesting is that a lot of my clients will be like really nervous about letting themselves get hungry because they're nervous that they can't trust themselves. They're nervous that like, oh my God, if I feel that pain of hunger, I'm going to like go crazy. I can't let myself. So there's a lot of work that we do inside the Yummy Mummy, which you'll see around like self-trust and like trusting your body. Your body knows. It's like sleep or pooping. Like I always use these analogies. Like your body is 99.999% of the time correct when it gives you a cue about it having to poop or sleep or pee, right? And the same is true for eating and being sated. Like it's going to tell you, and you can build the muscle of feeding it an appropriate amount. And it might have to be something that you learn over a little bit of time. But you'll like, sometimes I eat with my family when I'm not hungry because I know I'm going to get hungry an hour later anyways. So it's like testing and retesting in a container where you have support and help, and you can always ask the question to find out what's right for you. Because some of my clients, like they have like guidelines or rules for themselves or just ways of being that feels really right for them, where they're like, I just don't eat unless I'm hungry. And that's what works for me. Or like, no, I want to eat with my family. So I am going to eat with my family when they eat, knowing that I'm going to get hungry later anyways. I mean, there's so many different examples of this, but again, it goes back to that custom approach and figuring out what works for you and coming back home to your body and like learning to trust your body will tell you. Your body can't lie. And I've heard this from my clients that it's actually kind of a sacred homecoming, which sounds weird, but the skill of being able to hear your body tell you what it's needing and then you being able to respond to it is actually very special. And we've robbed ourselves of that because of diet culture. It's not our fault. It's the way that we've been programmed. And there's so many rules in our society around when we should eat, why we should eat this, what we should have, and so much judgment and food pushers. And I mean, don't get me started about that whole subject. But like, again, if I had to put, well, I could wrap the Yummy Mummy method up in so many different nutshells, but one of the nutshells would be like figuring out what works for you and then being able to execute that and having your own back without worrying about what anyone else is going to think. People are always like, oh my God, like what if my kid doesn't see me eating breakfast? I'm like, my kid doesn't see me eating breakfast all the time. She's like, Mom, why aren't you eating breakfast? I mean, she doesn't ask me anymore because she's used to me not eating breakfast. And I'm like, I'm not hungry. And I'm not hungry in the morning because my body's not used to eating breakfast. And here and there, if I'm really hungry in the morning, I'll eat breakfast. But it's so funny. Like I grew up hating breakfast. I never wanted to eat breakfast. My mom actually didn't really make me eat breakfast because she was like, you're not hungry. You don't, here's some freaking berries if you want. And so I would always have like nothing for breakfast or fruit for breakfast because my body just wasn't ready for food. And it's like, I think a lot of us are freaked out about our kids or our friends or our families or that one mother-in-law food pusher. We're so scared that they're going to be like, why aren't you eating? And like, you can literally be like, because I'm not hungry. Like you would never say to your husband or your kid or, well, you might say this to your kid, but your friend, you would never be like, why aren't you taking a nap? It's like, I'm not taking a nap right now because I'm not hungry. You would never be like, why aren't you taking a poo? I'm not taking a poo because I don't have to poo. It's like we load so much meaning onto eating and food culture.
Yeah, it's very true. It's funny. I have a 2-year-old, so I definitely ask those questions a lot. But
I mean, the sleep thing is a different story at that age. Go the F to sleep. What is wrong with you?
In fact, today I asked both.
Wait, so are you asking him, but are you asking him, do you need to nap? Do you need to poop? Or are you asking?
No, I just tell him.
Oh, you're telling him, go poo. Take it out. Take it out. Okay. Well, yeah, he's 2. So I think that's fair.
But I do think like dieting, we learn to like not trust our own bodies, our own intuition, and our own emotions. And that's, I think, one of the things that makes the Yummy Mummy experience very unique is you learn how to be in your body, how to trust your body, not just in an intellectual way, but how to feel your emotions. Be embodied.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like there's so much, I love that you're bringing this up. There's so much safety that we create inside the container around being in your body and trusting your body. I mean, we do, like, I call it like a mindfulness moment at the beginning of our calls, but really what they are like embodiment practices, because I know how important it is for us to be able to like reside in our bodies. And so many of us are living from the neck up. And like, yeah, I want you guys to be embodied so that you can hear your hunger cues, but I also want you to be embodied so that you can feel your emotions, because if you can feel your emotions, then you don't have to freaking eat them or avoid them, and they're not a problem. Sorry, another tangent.
That's okay. I think that it's good for people to hear this, because I think it's so easy to feel alone in these types of struggles or to be worried about different things. But when you're doing weight loss this way, in the Yummy Mummy experience way, I don't think that people realize how much it helps to just work on this inner stuff, work on your feelings, because there's no way that a mom who is present in her body is going to pass on unhealthy habits comparative to the mom who's like searching for comfort in the kitchen.
Yeah.
We learn emotional regulation. We learn how to be in our bodies, and that stuff's so valuable to teach. And so I think the fears around that are incredibly valid. But I do think that it's important for people to understand how big of a part of like the reason the Yummy Mummy experience is getting such good results and has such a good success rate is because you're doing the embodiment stuff. I've seen that so clearly. It's the mindfulness, it's the feelings that make it different.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we can't skip that part. And it kind of feels like fluffy and like silly and like, no, that's not going to work. Just tell me like how many calories or my macros or whatever. And it's like, it's not the answer. And like, just be willing to try something different, you guys, because you guys have all tried all the things. Okay, do we need to tell the people anything else? Because I feel like that was like very thorough and winding and good. We did a good job, Krista.
Yeah. We did. I think maybe this will be helpful. I know that there's a couple of exciting things coming up, some webinars and classes and a challenge. So because those things aren't quite ready, you should follow Laura Conley Coaching on Instagram so you don't miss them when they come out.
Yeah, definitely stalk me, go down the rabbit hole on Instagram, DM me on Instagram, whatever. Let's be friends. I love it. Okay, Krista, thanks for coming on to the pod. You guys, I love talking to Krista. Krista and I maybe talk too much. We may or may not have gotten in trouble from my business coach. But I love doing this podcast format where we are like conversational. So yeah, you guys follow me on Instagram at Laura Conley Coaching. And then also feel free to tell us other topics that you want to hear about. And have the absolute best week ever. I love you guys all so much. Thank you so much, Krista. This was so fun. Ciao, ciao. Mwah.